First off is our trivia question. So it has to do with dry down on corn. We are at that time of the year. So where we're at right now, as far as timing, what is our typical dry down on corn? If you're just looking at calendar dates, say late September, early October, what can we expect per day our corn to dry down on average? And I would say this year it's been above average, especially here over the last 10 days or shortly after black layer for a lot of fields. But what is our typical? And we've got Riley quick on the trigger with an answer. And that is correct. A little bit of a wide range, but I'll give that to you. So we've got a winner, Riley Anderson, a reoccurring winner. So well done, Riley. Appreciate the answer. So to narrow it down a little bit, if we're at from the 26th to the 5th of October, on average, we're looking at between a half and 3/4 point a day. Riley's got a half to a point. So actually this year, that's probably closer to where we're at, but typically half to 3/4. So we've certainly seen that. And we're going to talk a little bit more about dry down and some of the projections on dry down here after a bit. But for this time of the year, that is normally where we're at. A few other things as far as the rest of the half-hour segment here. We're going to talk a little bit on GDUs, and I know it seems late to be talking about GDUs, but we still got some corn that's not black layer yet, so I'm going to hit on that. Of course, current topics, what we're seeing, hearing, also starting to get some plot results, so that's always fun to be able to talk a little bit about that as well. And I also wanted to check, is Ben Colby on? Ben, just for your information, is our new technical development representative who's taking over for Craig Lamourie. Craig's been working Storm Lake Farm for a number of years, been doing a great job, and Craig has retired, so Ben will be taking over for him. All right, jumping into GDUs. So looking at Rock Rapids today, we've got a lot of our planting dates, of course, are black layer. Interesting, most of the season we've been running behind on GDUs. That has changed here over the last month. And granted, from these April planting dates, some of these GDUs accumulated after black layer, especially the last 10 days or 2 weeks. But just looking at some of our black layer dates, this would be for 105-day hybrid. So those April planting dates, black layered right at about 2 weeks ago. So the 17th of May, a lot of corn planted right in that window. And we're sitting at really yesterday as a black layer date. And I would say that's pretty accurate, just looking at some corn that I was in yesterday. And then, of course, some of the famous June planting that we still have out there. We are running ahead on GDUs, at least from that planting date. But looking at here in about 8 days to get to black layer. And I guess the good thing with that is it does not look like there's any frost on the horizon. So hopefully most of our late planted corn is going to make it without a frost. I guess that's the plus of having the heat here later in the season. We've been able to push this along a little too quick in some cases, of course, as far as without having moisture. But at least we're going to make it without a frost for some of this June planted corn. So there is a positive that way. And speaking of the corn dry down, this is a tool. I think it's kind of a handy tool put out by Iowa State. But you can choose any location you want, put in a date to begin the calculation. So what I did was using Lyon County and having the 20th of September as the black layer date. So typical from some of our April planted corn. It shows you where that moisture is currently. To take a look at, today's date and what that moisture would be. So, really the projection has been, and this is using, of course, the weather that has taken place over these last 10 days. It's been right at about that point a day dry down. So, projecting really as of yesterday, when I ran this, that we were at 21.2% moisture. And then you can use this tool to look at the next 5 days. It's taking into account what that forecast is. So, only as good as the forecast. But at least we can look forward and see where we're at as far as our dry down moistures, and looking at the screen, you can kind of get an idea. And we're going to be slowing that pace of a point a day for dry down, but still fairly rapid. Giving you a range in there. If we're getting our rapid dry down, or if we tend to slow down. Bottom line is, we've got a lot of corn that's getting into the teens in moisture. I'm sure everybody out there is seeing that. I, for one, was looking at thinking it was going to be a late harvest, a slow harvest, a lot of wet corn. We were behind on GDUs in most locations. Of course, we had a lot of later planting dates, but wow, has things changed here in the last month. So harvest is and dry down moving along much quicker than what we ever expected at all. Jumping forward then, let's take a look at some of the different pictures that we've got. So drone shot that I took on Monday over in Sioux County, looking at a FTN plot, half-mile rows with some of the different hybrids shown. Any guesses? And I know we're past our trivia guess time, but any guesses what difference we might have in the middle here of the plot? Pretty green section. Don't try to overthink this one.
Oh, pick me, Jim. I'll guess.
Yeah, what's your wild guess, Jay?
Oh, maybe DeLauro complete on that.
Yeah. Well, you'd be close. Actually, in this case, it's not DeLauro complete. It's another fungicide, but yes, there was a fungicide sprayed. So,
what?
Yeah, pretty clear cut where that line is, though. The grower went across the rows here and sprayed about the middle third. So it'll be interesting at harvest. There has been some high moisture corn taken around the edge, but we don't have yield results on that. But this plot, of course, we'll be able to do a field region report and see our differences. This is a corn on bean plot. I would say pretty typical of most fields. So we've got some disease pressure, mostly southern rust, some common rust, few odds and ends of some other diseases, but not anything. In fact, compared to a lot of fields, it wasn't as heavy a disease pressure. So we've got some help on the diseases, but also just overall plant health benefits. So, and I know 2 weeks ago when we did our DAACAT session, we had a video that basically showed the same thing of dramatic difference between plant health in sprayed versus unsprayed. So stay tuned on this one as far as how much yield response we see, especially by hybrid. But I have a feeling this is the year. In fact, anybody out there on the call have some reports as far as fungicide response that they've seen so far?
Hey, Jim, sorry, I tried to unmute myself earlier and I was talking, but forgot to push star 6 there. But got a call in from 105.33 here in Northwest Iowa. Did have some common rust, southern rust, northern, had some gases out there, which didn't help a lot. But one part of the field was sprayed with, I'm not sure what fungicide it was. It was sprayed with fungicide, was running about 255, and the part that was not sprayed, couple things. One, had some stalk issues, but also was about 40 bushel behind the part that was sprayed. So big response there. Also seeing, not only yield, but there's also a big response out of stalk integrity out there. I think there's some cannibalization out there, which the fungicide is helping as well. So that's kind of one of the reports I've got.
I appreciate that, Greg. Yeah, that's pretty extreme, but might be that type of year of seeing some of those huge differences. The main challenge I see is the fact that not a lot of acres got sprayed compared to most years. So we may have less of those advantages out there, but yeah, it looks like so far early reports we're gonna see some big responses from fungicides on corn. Another field example. No fungicide differences here, but just highlighting some of the hybrid differences. Maybe you should throw out another trivia question. Let's see, what type of varmint or animal caused that in the plot? And that would be the human animal. So that just happened to be a plot that we had gone through with dealers, breaking tops off and taking a look at ears. So still showing up, of course, but I think a pretty good example on some of the stay green differences. On this earlier side on the left, where we've got to 9888 next to 9911, seeing that pretty much across the board. So that stay green difference has been evident. Also, the more rapid dry down in that 9888. I will say, stalk integrity looked good, although we're starting to lose some tops in the 9888, but the rind strength is strong on that one, and it's hanging in there. But pretty stark differences on stay green. And then as you get into some of the other hybrids, 10133, as usual, very good stay green on that one, especially as compared to 10307. It's interesting. 10307, and we'll talk a little bit more on the Southern Rust ratings here in a bit, but that one's actually rated quite good on Southern Rust, and I've seen that in fields pretty consistently, but it doesn't have a lot of overall stay green, just as far as the plant health part. So kind of counterbalances that disease tolerance. The new 10408 product without a lot of stay green overall, especially if you're comparing it to the 10533. And then 5626, and I'll show a close-up shot here in a bit, but this 5626 is a little more susceptible to Gossa's wilt, and I think it that's what mainly we're seeing as far as some of the lighter color in there. And 10733, 10864, of course 11010 with its excellent plant health. So it's always like looking this time of the year, make sure the plots are intact, make sure that the yield data is going to be valid, but also like seeing some of these hybrid differences. Just for those of you that haven't seen the chat, Brian Rosberg had put in a report as far as DeLauro Complete having a 21.1 bushel advantage after the cost of the product and application is $25 per acre advantage. So appreciate that, Brian. And then looking at the ground level in that same plot that we just had up, there was pretty much the usual of Southern Rust, Gossa's wilt, tar spot in this field. A little bit of common rust, a little bit of northern as well. So just why stop with only 3 diseases? But this is kind of the difference when you're looking, or 10533 on the left, and then 5626 on the right. With the primary difference being some of the Gossa's wilt. And then, like a lot of situations, you've got that the complex of Southern Rust with tar spot coming in. Most cases, the tar spot is much lighter than the Southern Rust and tended to come in later. So just speaking on Southern Rust, it's something that we've seen a lot of this year, very unique to this year. So we don't tend to talk about our ratings. But the reason I bring this up is I do think there's going to be some impact on yield and possibly standability with Southern Rust. If you would ask me that 45 days ago, I didn't think there was going to be, so it has surprised me with the amount it's moved, especially up the plant. Mid-August, we still had a lot of Southern Rust in the lower canopy, but late season, especially as we had other stresses that were taking place, be it from dry weather, be it from nitrogen deficiency, be it from common rust, Gossa's wilt, northern, take your pick. All of those, I think, contributed to pushing some of this corn along too fast and pushing it over the edge. But I guess keep in mind the differences on the ratings, and I think a lot of this is real. I'm seeing it in the field. 105.33, 107.33, 110.10, 63.90, 91 are some of the poorer rated products on Southern Rust. 56.65 would be the other one I didn't mention. And then you've got a lot of products in there that are 4s or 5s that look decent. Will we ever need to pay attention to this again? Who knows? Chances are probably slim that we'll need to, since obviously this disease doesn't overwinter. But I think as far as maybe explaining, looking at differences right now in products, performance and standability, this could well be a factor. On the right side, you can see some of the facts and figures about Southern Rust. It is a fungus. Buccinia palisora is the actual name of the fungus. Of course, we know it does not overwinter, but apparently when a lot of those spores blew in, we had that ideal temperature, 77 to 88, which is a little higher than most diseases, most funguses like. Of course, the high humidity helps. You hear a lot of diseases that need 7 to 8 hours. Southern Rust doesn't need quite as much continuous leaf wetness. And then this fact is one of the reasons that we saw it blow up so quickly. But each pustule, in that, that's one of those small little pustules producing thousands of spores, and then those spores can infect in as little as a week's time. So it's just a continuous cycle. Yield losses up to 45%. Obviously, that would be the extreme, but hopefully we don't see anything like that. But there's been enough history with this in the southern U.S. that they've seen some massive losses. Common rust, which we saw first, likes that little bit cooler temperature, 61 to 77. So that's why we saw it early. As we warm up, we really see the common rust kind of tend to tail off. It doesn't take over when we have that much heat, but that's when Southern Rust kicks in, and that's why we saw Southern Rust as more of an issue later in the season and here towards the end of the growing season become a factor. So just keep in mind, I guess, as you're looking at product performance and standability, some of these differences in the Southern Rust ratings. A few other shots coming from Pocahontas County, just some side-by-sides, 104.08 and the 105.33. Not quite as much disease in this particular plot, but you're still seeing some of those staggering differences. And 108.64, 110.10, two outstanding hybrids side by side. 108.64, that's not unusual to see quite a bit of yellow browning, especially in the lower canopy, even for a 108-day hybrid. Notice that too, especially if we're in an area where we're nitrogen deficient. And then lastly in this plot, 114.42 next to the 114.99. So brand new 114.42 on the left here. That one, as far as plant health, staggering, disease, overall foliar disease tolerance, sure has looked solid. And then finishing up with just a little bit of plot data. This would be a plot actually just across the border into South Dakota. One of the first corn plots that I know of, at least, that had come out. And speaking of the 114.42 that we just looked at, outstanding yields, seeing some great top end out of that at 320 bushels, running 20.8%. So top of that plot, but you really see some excellent yields over in this part of the world. Really a lot of them in the upper 200s and right hovering around 300. But nice performance out of 106.98 new hybrid that we're pretty excited to have in the lineup for certain areas. And we've got 108.64, again 110.10, 62.89, 63.90. Been around for a few years, but excellent performance out of some of those key products. And on the soybean side, getting a handful of soybean plots coming out. This happens to be a alloy plot with a couple Pioneer competitors. Always fun to see. This was, I guess, back to Jay Pearson's earlier point on planting date. This was a earlier planting date, the 25th of April. And some pretty solid yields here. This was a field that, like a lot of fields, had water sitting on it early. Didn't look real pretty, but still ended up upper 60s to low 70s as far as yields. Some alloy products to highlight on the earlier side, that 1.6, 16E34, and then the 1.8, 18E35. Top of the plot was actually the 1.9, 19E33s. And then a key variety that I think is going to be one of our more broad fit products as far as being able to take a lot of different diseases as well as high pH. It's going to be that 21E34, coming in just a tick under 71 bushel. So nice performance there out of some of the alloys. That is my last slide. So that's where I wanted to wrap up and get to the QR code for those that are CCAs. You can click on that and get your half credit in crop management. But yes, at this point, I just want to thank everyone for being on, but also open it up for any yield reports, trends, things that you're seeing out in the field so far at this point. All right. Well, I won't beat a dead horse. Appreciate everyone for being on. Enjoy your day. Stay safe through harvest. Thank you.